This show contains profanity, advice you should never follow, humor that you might not enjoy. The names have been changed to protect the guilty. Do not try this at home.
Greetings, Yellow Blazers, Blue Blazers, Bill Bryson lovers, Bill Bryson haters, Reese Witherspoons.
Ooh, where'd that come from?
Wild.
Oh, Black Panther spotters.
Ooh.
Fake Black Panther spotters.
Texas Black Panthers.
It's the scariest kind in North Carolina.
Welcome to the Puss Podcast. My name is Pox Holiday, and sitting to my right,
Puss in Boots.
And today we're going to talk about cold things, warm things, and something I just heard in the grocery store.
Yeah.
Be right back. On my way over here, I stopped at the grocery store to buy some beer.
Betty D's grocery store?
Huh?
Betty D's grocery store?
Betty D's.
Betty D, the awesome gray-haired lady. She hasn't been there in a long time.
Yeah. No, I got some young thing. There's always like a high schooler working there.
Was it your young thing?
Oh, no, it wasn't my... I don't know if she's still there or not. The one that wears the Pokemon backpack?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
She wanted to touch you in your naughty bits.
She wanted to rub me the right way, Flex. I heard that song on the way over here, and that's one of the things I wrote down. You know that song I'm talking about? I rub you the right way. And there's like something in it, and it makes me think of Flex.
Time to have sex.
But so apparently one of our listeners like went and found Mad Cobra and put it on their playlist.
Oh boy.
But so I'm at the grocery store, and North Carolina Sundays you can't buy beer until noon. And I walked in.
Man, do you look like a jackass at 11:25 when you're like, really?
I literally stood over by the discount Halloween stuff.
So embarrassing.
And just leaned there for like 10 minutes, and like two guys walked by like, hey, you doing all right? Find everything? I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. Finally, like the third guy walked by, like the store manager, and he's like, doing all right? I'm like, yeah, just waiting for noon so my alcoholic ass can buy some beer. And he just kind of chuckled and walked off. But so I went over to the beer section, and I've been to this grocery store on a Sunday morning before for other things. And I wound up talking to this one. Yep.
Yeah.
Wound up scented. And I wound up walking up to this guy, and he was in the wine section. He started talking to me, and it turned out he's one of the guys that work for the distributor that stock in the mornings.
Right on. Yeah.
And I saw him there, and he was like, oh, he's chatting up some other dude who's buying like beef jerky. And they're sitting there talking, and I looked over, and I was on the chips aisle looking at chips to bring over here. Of course, I didn't bring any, sorry. And I was standing there.
There's no chicks here. There's not even any chips.
I hear the guy say, hell, only reason I'm married is because of that cat. And I was like, wait. Oh. And then they kind of turned, and I'm like, I kind of eased closer, but I couldn't hear. And he's like, first time went out on a date, just the two of us went out on the date. And just like, blah, 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 just mumbled. I'm like, wait, I can't hear what they're saying. And then I hear him say like, whoa, cat. And I was just like, oh God, I want to hear the rest of that story. But
it hadn't been for my horse, I never would have finished college.
I didn't know if you knew that Blue is Black sketch, but oh God, doctors don't understand why people have strokes. He's like, it's because of comments like that. They go in one ear, they rattle out around in your fucking brain. You can't get them out, and boom, you drop dead. Anyway, that's all I could think of. Like, hell, the only reason I'm married is because of that cat. But and I'm like, wait. I've heard him talk about the fact that he has kids. Like, how old is that cat?
Yeah.
But yeah. Oh, the other thing I was going to ask you was, have you ever used a mouthwash and like as soon as it went into your mouth, like maybe it's one you're not familiar with, you're like, wait, oh, this is poison. And then you have to look at the bottle. Long story short, I did that today.
I don't think so. What did happen on Friday night, Ben and I went out to get sushi, and I got sushi that had tuna on it, like raw tuna, obviously. And
didn't rub you the right way?
Well, no, I had completely finished my plate full of sushi, because that was how much my fitness pal had said that I was allowed to have. And I ate it like a goddamn hyena. And but I really like the ginger that comes with sushi, so right. I usually like eat that piece by piece as if it was like something legitimate.
Yeah.
And then I ate all of Ben's too, because he doesn't like his. And at one point, like, I, like, reached down with my chopsticks to get a sizable, thin piece of ginger.
Right.
And I put it in my mouth, and it was actually, like, a weird piece of tuna. And not that it was bad.
Yeah.
But I had mentally prepared for ginger, and then I got this, like, weird fleshy thing in my mouth, and I was like, ooh, what is this? This is not what I thought it was
Kind of
gonna be.
the drinking Coke, but you think it's tea.
Yeah.
You're like, oh.
Yeah, exactly. Or like you think it's sweet tea, but it's actually unsweetened tea. Or, you know, you're mentally prepared for something and you get something completely different.
I had one of those.
I kind of thought that I had gotten a pice of poisoned ginger.
Poisoned
Then I
ginger.
finally was like, nope, this is just part of dinner. It's fine.
Maybe that's the title of this episode, Poison Ginger. my mom recently had, like a couple days ago, had a sidewalk put into the front of the house. It had just been like a slate walkway, but it would erode and that
Those are
kind of
dangerous.
stuff. Yeah, it was. And it would erode in between, and so we'd always have to replace everything. So she finally just was like, I'm just going to put a concrete walkway in there. But what it does is it raises the walkway a few inches, so at the bottom of they only had like 3 stairs going down off their front porch. And now they really only have 2 because the third one's flush.
Oh, yeah.
And you know how you get into your rhythm of put up, like down the stairs kind of thing?
yeah,
It's like,
if you-
oh!
You've lived in that house for a long time. You just get used to it.
Like, that's how it is, yeah.
Yeah, sure.
And, so, like, it's...
From now on, every time that you are in your home intoxicated,
Yeah.
like, you'll always make that mistake.
Oh. I actually I had an animal interaction last night at that house. In front of the house, there's a little pond off to the side, a little fish pond, which has had every single little fish taken out of it by a heron or something, snakes, whatever. And so it's just a pond now, not really a fish pond. And
It's just a mosquito pond.
yeah, it basically it breeds mosquitoes. And so I was like going out to the car to get my phone charger out last night about 10:30 or something like that. Didn't have any lights on outside. I know the path, and I was like, I opened the door, and then I was like, what was that? Like, there was like, I heard a splash, and I'm like, it's kind of cool. So like, not a lot of frogs are jumping in and out right now. It's like, huh, that's a big ass frog. And then I took one step, and it was a huge fucking owl.
What?
Because it like I heard one flap, and then you didn't hear anything else, and it was just this big white chest body like off into the trees, and I was like, that's pretty cool. Went out to the car about 100 feet away, got my charger, and on my way back in, it was like a fucking coyote was up in the front yard, like in the hills. And now my mom lives in the middle of nowhere, so there could easily be a coyote. And I was like, man, that's a coyote.
Goddamn Narnia.
That's pretty crazy. And then I realized it was actually, and then that coyote was in a tree. So it was the owl, like, get the fuck out of my way, I'm trying to eat shit. It was like, like this. When I heard it the second time, it was like just some crazy screech from the tree. It wasn't a screech owl, but it was like, because those are a little bit smaller, I think. But yeah, it just fucking erupted. And then I realized, oh, that's not a coyote.
Oh.
But had that little interaction there last night. What we came here to talk about today is what did we come to talk about?
I'm guessing the Appalachian Trail.
That's right. This is an Appalachian Trail podcast.
It is, occasionally.
Occasionally, it erupts into a discussion about the Appalachian Trail.
Depending on your vernacular.
Yeah. We got an email actually today about specifically asking you from one female to another about winter gear.
Yes.
And I think the biggest thing was this person was from Florida, never seen snow before.
Which is adorable.
Yeah, it is. And just didn't really, I mean, and no fault of her own, just doesn't understand winter gear.
Which happens.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, you know, like...
If I were to go live in Maine for a year, I would have some questions.
Exactly. Yeah, I spent a semester in upstate New York, and like the first snow, I was like, so school's canceled, right? And they were like, no, school is not canceled. Like it's November. Like this is
what it does.
This is the beginning of no, this is fine. And then I was like outraged 2 weeks later when like half of the roads to get to school were iced over. And I was like, this is preposterous. This is dangerous. Like, how do people do this? I can't believe that they're asking us to come out in this, like, treacherous conditions. And they're like, it's not even January yet. Like, you are crazy. It's going to be like this until April. And I was like, this is insane. And so I ended up having one of my, like, just turned 18-year-old classmates drive me to school all the time.
Yeah.
And he was just this, like, bless his heart. He was barely 18 years old and totally a redneck. It was his first time out of his county. And he would pick me up in his pickup truck every day and take me to school.
Nice.
Yeah.
But, so what advice did you give her? I know you emailed her back. And
I gave her a brief response and told her that we would talk about it today and then I would go a little deeper if she needed me to. That's what she said.
Hey-o.
Hey-o.
I'm going to grab a beer.
Yeah. Will you give me one?
Yeah.
Thanks. Well, I responded to her and told her that we would talk about it a little bit more on the show and that if she needed any more information, we could talk about that too. But winter stuff and cold weather stuff is one place that I'm kind of unwilling to make some sacrifices in weight. The cold temperatures that you will encounter on the trail can certainly have the potential to be like your most miserable if you're not prepared for them. And everybody's different. You know, everybody knows the guy that's hot all the time and wears shorts all summer long
Right.
and all winter long and never seems to get cold ever. And then there are people like me that like a stiff breeze in the middle of July and I'm like, I need a sweater. I'm very cold. Exactly. So especially for somebody who is not used to the cold at
Right.
all, like somebody from Florida, for example, and there's not really a way to prepare for that short of like, you know, going into a meat locker or something like that where it's like,
Yeah.
oh, this is what cold is like. So, you know, there's the obvious winter gear stuff, sleeping bag clothing, sleeping bag liners, changing your the quality of the calories that you're eating can make a big difference. But we'll go into that a little bit more in depth, mostly because we are reaching the magical time of the year where there's about to be Black Friday sales and Christmas stuff.
Cyber Monday.
Yeah, all of these big sales that if you do some research ahead of time, you can get some really good deals. And then on top of that, you know, after the holiday season is also a really good time because most companies will debut their new models like in February, which
Right.
is tricky because you don't want to bank on the new models if you're going to plan your hike for late February or March or something like that.
Right.
But if you play your cards right, you can get the years prior gear for way less. So as far as you know, some of the more pricey, specifically down stuff that you can put a lot of money into, you can get those for a lot less if you kind of price shop a little bit. So for sleeping bags, I know for me, I carried, and I wish they hadn't gotten rid of this line, but REI had a line of sleeping bags that was their Kilo series, and it basically was like a high quality down that was totally bare bones on extras. It was a really lightweight taffeta shell with
They sold it in a short.
yeah, they sold it in a short, and it was just like a nice, I think like 850 fill power or something like that. It was good quality fill.
I still have two of mine from 2004.
Exactly, yeah. And I had a sub kilo, which was their women's 15-degree bag, and I actually got a men's Kilo Plus, which was their 40-degree bag. And it was like a men's long, but I think that it was back when they had their 83-cent sales.
Yeah.
And so it was, I think I ended up paying like $25 for this really nice down bag.
Yeah.
So I used both of those. Together they weighed about 3 pounds, which I was happy to do, considering I could nest one in the other and sleep pretty comfortably for me. And I think that a lot of people, once you've got some experience under your belt, it's like anything else. You kind of know your threshold. And I know in my mind that the temperature rating of a bag, that I need to like subtract about 15 degrees from it to work for me.
Yeah.
So if somebody says that it's a 10-degree bag, it's really like right around freezing, 25 degrees, something like that. Which just takes experience, and that's hard to get if you live somewhere where you can't do that. So hello. Doobie doo. Mew mew mew. Sorry.
It was right as I was saying something. I was like, oh, you got me. My mouth was open. You know, sometimes there are some places that allow you to actually rent gear. Mm-hmm. And that might not be a bad thing for someone who's just thinking about it. And sometimes you can find places that allow you to rent gear that if you turn around and buy something from them, they'll credit you for that money you spent on the rental.
Super nice. It's always worth to ask, too, because sometimes they'll do that if they think that they're going to sell a $200 sleeping bag or more. It's also a really good time I think some of these really big investments, like sleeping bags or packs or tents, borrow it from somebody, try it out in your backyard for a night, see what you think. I can still remember my mother, like, being worried to pieces sometime around, I think it was like the first week of January before I left for my hike, that we had unseasonably cold weather in North Carolina. And I was watching the news with my parents, and, you know, the weatherman was like, it's going to be really cold. We're thinking like 11 degrees tonight. And I was like, well, I'm sleeping outside. And my mom just looked at me like I had completely lost it. And I was like, and she was so worried about me. She was like, why are you going to sleep outside? It's going to be so cold. And I was like, look, way better for me to figure it out tonight that I don't have warm enough stuff than to figure it out on Springer Mountain.
Yeah, 2 days away from anything.
Exactly. So, you know, try it out. I know that Florida winter nights are not the coldest, but it's
chock full of anacondas.
But yeah, well, you know, Burmese pythons coming out your ass all over the place. But you know,
got your ball python right here.
But the more you can actually get some experience, the better. If you're not used to sleeping outside, sleep outside. It's amazing how much different it is to sleep in the cold, you know, with your, you know, what is it? I've been refusing to turn on my heat, and but sleeping with the windows open. And I've been waking up in the mornings, and it's, you know, like 60 degrees, which is cold inside of a house. It is amazing how much colder 60 degrees is when you're sleeping on the ground than it is sleeping in your bed with a dog and lots of covers. So, you know, I think even just being close to the ground where there's more moisture around your head, and, you know, it's just totally different. There's cold coming up from the ground. Yep. Totally different ball game. So
you're giving your heat back to the ground.
Yeah, exactly. You're basically just a big giant heat sink. So try out different sleeping bags. But I think sleeping bags are one place that it's worthwhile to sink some money. That said, you don't have to buy a $900 Western mountaineering bag, although it is really tempting.
Yeah.
You know, you don't have to do that. But don't get suckered into spending too much money on a super fancy down bag that has a waterproof covering on it and has all these little zippers and has the cute little hand warmer, you know, pocket in the inside and this, that,
the
and
watch
other.
pocket.
Yeah, exactly.
Cat's meow.
Yeah, right. My favorite part about the cat's meow is that it's got that little hoodie pouch in the front that you can slip your hands into.
Oh, yeah.
It's fleece. It's like, why don't you make me a cup of tea and jerk me off at the same time? So, anyhow, clothing, again, like, I'm not super scared when it's wintertime to, like, skimp on clothes. When I started the trail, I remember somebody else had asked me on Twitter what all I carried for winter clothing, and I carried Patagonia Capilene, which I think that they've changed the name of Capilene, or at least how they rated it, but basically they had Cap 1s, Cap 2s, Cap 3s, Cap 4s, and Cap 4s were basically fleece or power stretch. Cap 1s were silk weight, and 2 and 3 were varying, you know, lighter weight,
right?
You know, mid-weight kind of layers. And I started with Cap 1s, Cap 2s, and Cap 3s, just because I didn't know what I would want. I sent the Cap 2s home pretty soon, but I still had the 1s and 3s. And more importantly than that, I made sure that one of them were for camp, one of them were for hiking.
Right.
I had socks for camp. I had a hat for camp. And gloves are for pussies. Don't bring them. And I also, until I felt like I was super duper comfortable, I don't think that I would have made it if I didn't have a puffy jacket. And I didn't have the nicest puffy jacket ever, but it was probably about a pound of, I think it was just like a Marmot, not super duper lightweight. It was like their, I think $120 down jacket. And I loved that thing. And I only wore it once, like, I think I had my sleeping bags, my sleeping bag liner, and my down jacket were all in my compression bag. And I didn't break that out until I had broken down camp, like until I had set up camp for the night. And that was sort of like the rule that I had made to myself was like, if it's cold enough to be cold, I need to hike a little faster and get to where I'm going that night and then set up camp and put on dry, clean clothes, clean enough relatively, and a down jacket and make some food. So, and if that meant that my day got cut short early, like just to be aware of like how cold I was, then that's what I did. So I think that, there's a lot of people, and I think a lot of people spend a ton of money on that puffy layer, and it doesn't have to be that expensive. No. And it's certainly like, even if you wanted to buy one that was really expensive, do a little bit of searching on Amazon and find one from a year or two ago, and you'll pay half as much, and it's going to be just as warm no matter what the write-up tells you.
The coldest, one of the coldest trips I've ever been on was on Mount Washington literally as a nor'easter was approaching. Yeah. And I think I was wearing an Icicle Creek down jacket. Yeah. Go find Icicle Creek someplace. Yeah. Like, never heard of it before, but it was dirt cheap, and I just needed to have that warm layer. Right. But I was able to wear a better outer shell over top of it in that kind of situation. So
yeah, I mean, super, super important. I think above and beyond everything else is to remember that, like, your camp clothes are for camp, your hiking clothes are for hiking, ne'er should the two meet. The only time that I would wear camp clothes to hike in was when I was hiking into town, and I wanted something a little bit cleaner and nicer to be going into town with. And they always got washed when I got into town. Clothes that are dirty don't hold heat as well. So it's kind of important to make sure that the clothes that you intend to wear to bed and around camp are stay as clean and dry as possible. And my typical camp wear was a really big pair of fuzzy socks, my Crocs. I had my, I think in Franklin, I bought a pair of like power stretch pants when it was really cold. And so I wore, excuse me?
This is a burpee beer.
It is a burpee beer.
Yeah.
I had my power stretch pants and, Cap 3, like, quarter zip, long sleeve t-shirt, and down jacket, and hat. And if you're still cold hanging around camp, get into your sleeping bag. That is what it's there for. And then for food, obviously, like, think about all of the things that you're not supposed to eat when you're in normal civilization, and that's, like, what you should kind of double up on. You're not supposed to eat a lot of carbs. Eat a lot of carbs. They burn. And it's when they burn that you get heat inside.
One trick I learned as well with food is that in cold weather, you're not as inclined to drink water. Yeah. Like, your body just doesn't. You're not as thirsty as you are when it's hot. And so I always try and make all of my meals a little more soupy. Yeah. Like, not necessarily like mac and cheese soup, but just a little bit more wet than it would be, because you're still getting that water into your body. If you're eating it, you're more inclined to eat it. Or if you're going to eat something like a soup, or just whatever, like if your oatmeal's a little bit soupier in the morning, it's a better way to get that that moisture into you.
Fats and sugars are really key to being comfortable when you're cold. At least I know that that's worked for me a lot. So, just like you said, you're not as inclined to drink freezing cold water. So when you get into camp, maybe carry a little bit extra fuel, boil some water. I know that my favorite wintertime treat is either going to be hot. It sounds gross, but either hot Kool-Aid or hot Jello mix.
I was gonna say, do you ever do hot Jello? Yeah,
hot Jello mix is my favorite because it's super sugary, and when it's warm, it just tastes really good, and you're more inclined to drink it. And then the heat from obviously drinking something warm is nice. The other thing is, if you have the room for it, squeeze butter is pretty darn shelf stable. Mm-hmm. And so I usually had a 1 ounce container of squeeze butter, which is gross. And it's, again, one of those things that I wouldn't probably eat in my normal life. But some squeeze butter in some hot chocolate is delicious. Yeah. And the extra fat in your blood is really good for kind of retaining some warmth. So all of these things are things that I figured out either the hard way or trial and error, and anybody else will as well. And I've talked about before, I have a circulatory condition that I have to kind of think of in ahead of what some other people might need to think about their planning. But I guess at the root of it, though, I always thought that if at some point on my hike I didn't see snow, it wouldn't count, which right. I know isn't true. And I'm sure that there are people that have had phenomenal hikes that didn't see any snow. But I was really glad to have seen snow around Franklin, because I felt like, all right, this steps up the level of badassery. Mm-hmm. And it, at the time, I remembered being a little bit afraid. I had never post-holed before. I'd never really camped in snow before. But you figure it out, and then at the end, you've got a really good story, and it adds to the adventure. So
it snowed on my second day and my last day.
Oh, really?
It snowed on my second day going into wherever the hell, and then it snowed as I went up Katahdin, and it started snowing right below tree line. And then when we got up, it wasn't snowing, but I post-holed all the way down. Yeah. What's it called? Klingman's and stuff like that. But yeah, I feel the same way. It's
right. It's a rite of passage, and think about that's part of the there's a word, that's when you see people's summit pictures and they've got their big grizzly beard and it's covered in icicles, you can't help but look at that and be like, God damn, what a badass.
Yeah, fuck yeah.
And the only way you can do that is by being in the cold. So I hate the cold as much as the next person, but it makes the trip, and it makes for really good stories afterwards. So that's part of that, adventurous spirit that I think anybody that's gearing up for a big trip, it comes equipped. So don't be scared of winter, but do be prepared for it.
Boom. It's like The Stranger. Sit on your hand for a minute and... Was that Gone in 60 Seconds in that movie?
Oh, I didn't see it.
The Stranger, where you sit on your hand for a while, wait till it goes numb, and then jerk off, and it feels like somebody else is doing it.
Oh, yeah. Or just Lefty.
You're right, Lefty.
Lefty is a little... I'm
amphibious, so...
Well, there you go. Hey.
Yeah, we should talk about your hand.
Oh, I don't even want to. It's so... It makes me sound like the biggest whiner ever. I went to the doctor, and it was one of those, I woke up one morning and my wrist didn't feel right.
Right.
And I was like, all right, that's cool.
And you use your hands for work.
Yeah.
We'll just leave it at that.
I work a pretty physically demanding job, but I kind of figured this will be all right. I'll take it easy this weekend. Yeah. So I didn't do a whole lot.
You get hand jobs is what we're saying.
Well, yeah. Right. You switch up to, my non-dick hand.
It's tough to swing around a pole with just one hand.
Yeah. Well, if you're good enough, you can make it happen. So So I took it easy that weekend, and I got back to work at the beginning of the week, and, like, I was probably working for 15 minutes, and I was just like, well, this isn't going to work at all. So I took the rest of that day off, and I went to the doctor. And on my way to the doctor, I'm like, I think I'm gonna, there's a handful of other things in the back of my mind, and I've got that, like, shitty health insurance where you get 4 doctor's appointments a year.
Thanks a lot, Obama.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So I'm figuring, like, I'm pretty sure this is my last appointment that I have of the year, the calendar year. So on my way, I'm like, well, I should probably talk about the fact that, like, my foot, like the bone between my big toe and my ankle, has been, like, irritated when I roll, like, onto the inside of my foot or use my toes, like if I'm balanced on my toes.
Right.
That bone hurts. And, I've got this little bump on my, like, it's on my spine, on my lower back. Mm-hmm. I was like, and that hurts.
Right where your
sometimes.
tramp stamp is.
Right. Well, right to the, yeah, exactly. So.
Oh, that's right. I forgot.
No, it's okay.
Okay.
It's off center, so it doesn't count.
It's not, yeah. No.
So, and I don't know why, but I just sort of went in there. I think I went in there jaded because it was like, I'm going to go in there, I'm going to waste my last doctor's appointment, and they're going to tell me I have nothing wrong with all 3 things, and that's going to be that. Mm-hmm. And they're going to send me out the door, tell me to take ibuprofen, and go back to work.
Right.
So, I get there, I tell them all 3 things, and they're like, all right, first things first, let's look at your foot. Yeah, we want to we definitely want to x-ray that. Let's look at your wrist. Yeah, we're going to ask another doctor to come in here and look at your wrist too. Okay. And let's look at this bump. Yeah, you need to get that checked out, like, ASAP, but we'll get your wrist and your foot we'll get those x-rayed and take a look at those. So they come back in, they're like, yeah, so you broke your foot, but you said that it's been hurting for like 2 months. So there's not really anything we can do about it now. You just got to kind of tough it out.
Did you drop something on it?
Oh, God, I have no idea. Like, I hurt myself every day, and I just sort of assume that if I feel it the next day, then it might be something worth, like, my job is pretty rough on the body. So I kind of just figure, like, well, I could cry about everything that happens, or I can, rub some dirt in it, and if a week later it still hurts, then I'll do something about it then.
Right.
So, and actually my foot hadn't really been hurting a whole lot until I started working out a lot more, and then it was like, well, maybe, I don't know. And it's just, most of the time it's fine, but I actually think I've compensated with my walking to make it not hurt. Mm-hmm. And so I've just been doing that for so long that I didn't really think about it.
Yeah.
So apparently I broke my foot, and it's been broken for so long that it started to heal, and it's not healing, like, super incorrectly. So they're just sort of like, yeah, just tough it out. Yeah. Sorry, buddy. And then they're like, yeah, you've got really, like, pretty bad tendonitis in your wrist. So we've got this crazy wrist brace for you that, like, it's like a permanent thumbs up position. Yeah. And they basically said, like, super optimistically, like, the good news is it's not broken. So you can just wear this brace, and as long as you wear the brace, you can do all your normal activities. But I can't do any of my normal activities because I can't make a fist. Yeah. So it's like, and, she's like, no, you can go back to work. I'm like, no, I can't, because I can't hold anything. Like, that is what my entire day of work is hold, you can't work at the massage parlor if you can't, So anyhow, so it was not, I assumed going in that I was going to be really disappointed when I left, because there was not going to be anything wrong with me. And in fact, there were lots of things wrong with me. So then the really shitty thing was, she got me all worked up about this. Like, she's like, this could be a tumor. This could be, like, a lot of things, like this spot on my back. She's like, really, like, you need to get this checked out immediately. Yeah. So I made an appointment for the next day with a specialist, and I walk in, and he's like, yeah, I think you got
Is it?
Yeah, no, he was like, I think you got, like, prematurely worked up about this. this. This really isn't anything.
I'm like, I didn't.
He was like, I can't do anything about this, and, I wouldn't worry about it. I'm like, what if it's painful? He was like, if it's painful, come back. I'm like, you jackass, I don't have good insurance. Coming back costs so much money, so...
Did you have to do the whole, like, naked thing, and they, like, walk around you and look at you?
No.
Wait, is that just my doctor?
I think that's just your doctor.
Oh, fuck.
I think he just wants to see you in the...
Dr. Sandusky.
Oh, boy. Oh, boy. So anyway, I'm on the mend. It just means that, like, I'm going completely stir crazy because I've been home. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not allowed to go, I can't go to work because I can't work. And so I'm just, like, looking around my house, and every time I'm like, oh, I could do that. Nope, can't, because I can't do that with my hand. So, like, everything in the house is falling apart when I feel like I could, like, honestly, my first thought when I was like, oh, I can't go to work was, I'm going to get so much done in the next 2 weeks because I'm just going to be home and it's going to be great.
Just my left hand.
Exactly. And then it's like, oh, shit, I can't do any of the stuff I was thinking. And I hate to say that because it makes me sound like a big whiner. I know that there are people that, like, have... no arms or, no hand or no thumb or whatever. And here I am, like, scrawling on pieces of paper.
I'm having to drink a beer with my left hand.
I know, it sucks. I'm the biggest whiner ever. But at the same time, I'm just like, this is not fun. I'm not having fun anymore. So
in the middle of that, you made the international sign for the jack-off symbol.
I did.
I have just felt like doing that every time I read anything on, and now on my regular Facebook page, like when I just read things from people, and a lot on Twitter too. Yeah. It's just I find myself just, and it's just like, oh God, I think you've ruined me with the jack-off symbol. How did it get started with us? Was it you or me? I can't remember.
We were really drunk one time.
Yeah, I'd imagine.
And I think that it just sort of
That's
happened.
Right, it just kept happening.
Yeah.
And our imaginary penises just kept getting longer.
Well, I don't know about your imaginary penis. My penis has always been really long, imaginary or not. But anyhow,
The penis monologues.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that we were just really drunk one time and started, like, it got out of hand.
Everything that was said.
It was like a that's what she said kind of thing. We just kept making, maybe it was not at the table, Carlos. Like,
yeah,
I think I said that once, and then it just went from there.
I had, speaking of Carlos, I had to, I did not go to the quote unquote company Halloween party the other night. And I got in a little bit of trouble for not going. I didn't realize it was mandatory. And I was like, I just didn't feel like going. Hello, Journey. And I just didn't feel like going. And I was like, oh, I'm sorry. And so I've kind of had to make light of the situation. Like, I didn't really get in trouble. They're like, oh, it's not mandatory. It's just really strongly encouraged, and like, oh, okay, whatever. And I just didn't feel like it. My wife had to have a surgery the other day. So it was just like, I was just not feeling it.
Right.
And so, I've been making light of it, like, hey, really sorry I didn't come to that thing. I was so close to dressing up. They're like, oh, what were you going to do? And I was like, all you guys call me the guy from The Hangover, so I have the full outfit. Like, I have the satchel, I have the pants, I have the shirt from the first one. You don't get rid
of an outfit like that.
No.
Fair fucker.
Yeah. I have the sunglasses, I have the whole thing. And they're like, oh, you should have done it. Would have been great. I'm like, yeah. No fucking way I'm dressing up like that.
Yeah.
But, speaking of summit photos, I'm starting to think that if you want a really good shot at summiting Katahdin,
yes,
you should sit down and be interviewed by us next year at Trail Days.
Yeah.
I mean,
we've got really good odds.
Yeah.
What are the odds that our odds would be that good?
I don't know about Giggle Fits. I don't know about that dude. I don't even know if that guy was a Thru-Hiker. He probably was. But Big Yankee, Chipmunk, and Whitey, and Moose, they all finished up, and yeah, I mean, we had a pretty good run, and I guess
no sob stories, like no horrific, like, oh well, so and so almost made it, or
couldn't quite, but
so and so had an injury, or ran out of money, or the weather turned, or got shut out of Katahdin. It's it's like pretty darn cool.
It's the thing to do.
Yeah, so, big congrats to all those folks. Big Nate and Bear Big Yankee and Chipmunk just finished up, and Whitey finished up a while ago, and
we've had and this year's been a whole bunch of youngsters. So you had Chipmunk setting the youngest solo, and then I don't know the name of the young lady who finished, the 13-year-old who's now a triple crowner.
I knew her name, and now I don't remember it.
But she finished up. It's just a crazy year of records.
Yeah.
And and another thing is that Hawkeye finished his fundraising hike.
Yeah.
Even after breaking his collarbone and all that stuff. But apparently he hiked into a tavern as like this huge snowstorm was coming in. Like the first big one of the year, and like he finished the day that it hit. And
it was
a
crazy year for weather.
It was perfect for him. But I tell you, up in the mountains, North Carolina, right now, we had a lot. I mean, don't need to tell this Thru-Hiking class that there was a lot of rain this year. But we have, without a doubt, the most beautiful fall colors we've had in a long time. It's just gold and orange everywhere up there, awesome. And it hit just in time for the government to open back up, and so for everybody to drive through there and be able to cruise around and check out Gatlinburg, the Myrtle Beach of the mountains. And just in time for everybody from Florida to come up and take a look at flowers.
Yeah,
flowers at leaves. Another thing that's interesting is when we finish recording this, we're packing everything up and we're going to a real radio studio.
Oh my gosh!
To be interviewed.
Oh my gosh!
On the Quarts Podcast.
Bless my stars.
And I think episode 15 of the Quarts, and I'm saying it like the number 2 and quarts, because I think you drink 2 quarts of beer while you're there.
Oh boy.
Something like that. And
$20 worth.
$20 liquor. And they... it's mainly a North Carolina podcast, but I think people would find it interesting. But the 15th episode, I think it's called like Fashion Week or Fashion Day or something like that. That actually has past Pox and Puss guest Johnny Swank on there.
Right on.
And Johnny Swank, who just bought a truck.
I'm so excited for him.
A food truck.
I'm so
excited for his t-shirt business.
I'm wearing my Johnny Swank shirt right now.
Yeah, you are. I wish I thought about bringing one as well, but I didn't.
Loser.
Do you notice my brand new shirt I'm wearing today?
It's very plaid.
It's very plaid. Still has the wrinkles in it because it's my Christmas gift from my mom. I already went ahead and got.
Oh,
it's Patagonia.
That's nice.
It's Patagonia. It's Gooch.
You're serious about it. That's nice.
Yeah. This is probably the only Patagonia shirt I own, except for a free one I got at work one time.
Yeah.
For a company, and I don't have a lot of Gooch. I have a Capilene. My absolute favorite long sleeve layer is a Capilene, like an old school Patagonia R.5. They stopped making it after the second year. And you were talking earlier about winter stuff, and for me, I'm one of those guys that puts off a lot of heat. I'm just a little furnace, and so mine's completely different. I do pretty well with a windproof fleece vest, and then a long sleeve like the 0.5 or another piece of Capilene or something like that. And I'm pretty good with that. In a lot of situations. Now, granted, if it's 0 degrees, I'm gonna have a few more layers on, and I do have a pair of windproof fleece pants that they zip up the sides so I can just throw it over everything.
I didn't even really talk about what I hiked in, but what I hiked in was just a pair of I actually think they were my Cap 1 leggings. They were whichever one is feels a little bit more nylon-y and is a little bit slicker. It's not quite as cottony feeling. I think that they were the cat. Well, no, what were they? I don't know. Anyway, but I hiked in some slicker nylon leggings. I had my hiking skirt on over that. I had knee height gaiters. And then I usually just hiked in like a Cap 1 long sleeve shirt, and if I was cold, I had a really good rain jacket that I wore while I hiked for a long while, and I carried that really, I mean, and that was another place that I gained a lot of weight in my gear, was this rain jacket. It was a nice heavy rain jacket. It wasn't an ultralight one that folded up into a pocket. It was substantial. But that thing saved me, not just in keeping moisture out, but in keeping heat in. And that's actually one thing that I worry about with some of the more higher tech fabrics, like, having some event jackets and stuff like that. Again, you're going to pay $300 for a jacket that lets heat out. Like, that's the specifics of it, is that it doesn't make you roast to death inside of it. But sometimes roasting to death is not the problem you're trying to prevent. Sometimes that's keeping heat in. So, beware. There are products that you want to spend a lot of money on, and there are some really cool products out there, but maybe some of the higher tech stuff isn't necessarily where it's at. But, and I'm cold by nature, but if you're really, boogieing with some weight on, I was pretty darn comfortable in some pretty thin leggings, and a pretty thin shirt, and having a little bit of windbreak on my legs from the knee down, and my body from, having a hooded jacket down to my hips. And if I kept moving, I was good. Now, that said, like, if I stopped, I was cold. So, those were the days that I kept snacks in pockets, and I walked and kind of munched while I went if I needed some fuel. And those were also the days that if I needed to, like, really stop and make a legitimate, like, all right, I'm going to stop and make a lunch of something warm, then I was probably going to bust out the down jacket that was with my sleeping bag and try and snuggle up a little bit and take a legitimate break. But if I didn't feel like I really needed that, then it was going to be cold stuff and hike on, and then maybe make an early day of it. But,
yeah, see, if I hike with a rain jacket on, even in extremely cold weather, I will sweat it out for the most part, no matter what type of fabric.
Yeah.
But what I have done in the past, though, is if I needed a rain jacket, like it's actually rain or sleet or something like that, and I'm getting hot, obviously I have the pit zips, that kind of thing. I will just put my arms through the pit zips.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't have my sleeves. Like,
that makes sense.
And then one thing you can do with that is just, like, you can, like, I've had people do this before. They just, like, ask you just, like, to kind of tie the sleeves behind their back or, just so it's out of the way of your pack. And so it's almost like you're wearing a rain vest.
Sure.
Because you're really just trying to keep the core warm. But again, I put off heat, I raise the temperature of a room by a degree just being in it,
And I mean, that said, like, I remember on my hike, there were a lot of people that bought, what were they? I can't remember who made them. But there were a lot of people that had down short sleeve jackets. Or just down, like, a good down vest. And, I think a lot of the guys were pretty comfortable in something like that. But I do think that, women by nature lose a lot more heat than the gents. So, that's one thing that could make a big difference. Also, like, I was always super jealous of the people that had those, like, really cool down pants.
Right.
But I, as much as I think that they would be really cool, I don't know that they would have been quite so useful for me. But, man, did they look nice. And especially when it was a little bit cold. And that said, every year is a little bit different, and the temperature extremes are a little bit different. And, I've told the story about walking into the bar in Monson at the Lakeshore House. And there's a guy there that I hadn't seen him since Georgia and North Carolina, wherever Blue Mountain Shelter is. Yeah. And I walked into that bar, and he looked at me and he was like, "Hey, I remember you." And I was like, "Hey, I remember you." And he was like, "We were both in that shelter that miserable night on Blue Mountain Shelter," which is just a shelter that faces into the wind. And it was freezing. I want to say that I had heard from somebody that night it was down to 8 degrees. And that was the only day of my whole hike that I woke up at like 5 o'clock in the morning and I was like, fuck this noise. I'm packing up my shit and I'm getting moving because that's the only way I'm going to get warm right now.
Yeah.
And that's what I did. And, there are days like that, but that's, again, part of the story.
Well, let's see. So earlier this week, I woke up the other day. I guess was it on Thursday or Friday? Woke up and I was like laying in bed, didn't feel like getting up, and I just grabbed my phone and was like, oh, look at what's on there. And I was just kind of scrolling through Facebook or something like that. And somebody I know put up a picture. Actually, no, it was Miss Janet. Had put up a picture on Facebook. And it was of a Black Panther, not a Forrest Gump. Sorry to break up your Black Panther party, Black Panther, but an actual black cat. And
Catamount.
Saying that it
cougar.
was an rip something. Rip something mountain, and which is like basically the next largest mountain next to Mount Rogers, Roan Mountain. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And saying that it had been caught on one of those like hunter game cameras or something like that. I mean, and this motherfucker looked badass. You looked at it and you're like, holy shit.
Totally panthery.
Yeah, and it's just like, I sent it to Ice Cold, who was
It's
on
like when you see a picture of a really ferocious looking snake and you just look at it and you're like, oh man.
Yeah, that thing
I
was
would not want to tangle with that.
Yeah, this thing was just looked like 100 and something pounds of muscle just running through the woods, and I sent it in a text.
It's like that illustrated Black Panther in the Jungle Book. Like,
or it's like
you
the
can
one
just see him like adjusting his shoulder blades and like getting ready to fucking pounce on you.
Or it's like the tattoo that Vince Neil from Motley Crue has, where it looks like it's like down his arm.
He's just totally
badass.
he's just ready to rip you to shreds. You would never live.
But I sent it to Ice Cold. I sent the picture to him in a text, and he was just like, "Oh fuck." And I was like, yeah, welcome to my nightmare.
Oh yeah, fuck.
Here we go. And so I put it up on. I was like, look at this. I published it or reposted it from there and on Twitter and Facebook and a few other places. And turns out I usually check everything.
I know.
I usually check everything.
You're really good at that.
And I didn't.
You were excited.
I was
you were caught up in the moment.
And that picture was taken in Texas.
God damn.
But apparently it actually had turned into like a big thing because there was actually an article about it that I didn't repost, but I was just like, yep, it's, I got hoodwinked. It's a hoax. But I mean, I have seen cat scat in North Carolina. But that's still just, it's a mountain lion is one of those things where it's just like,
yeah. It's legit.
Just take my neck. Just go ahead and do it. Just, if it's going to happen, don't fuck with me. Don't play with me. Or my dogs.
Yeah. All it takes is watching a couple of those, like, when animals go bad. And then there's, like, always the obligatory, like, crazy out west mountain people that have gotten attacked by mountain lions and, like, lived. And you're just like, oh, my God. Oh my God.
Did you ever have something walk around your tent or something that you were like, what in the hell is that? But you didn't see it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I did that in the Shenandoah.
Yeah.
In a place, obviously a sanctioned campground in the Shenandoah.
Obviously.
And
it would be illegal to do it anywhere else.
Just kept walking closer and closer, and you're just like, what the fuck, dude?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and that is the worst. And that's like the worst mental game ever to eventually like learn, because it's really hard to, you understand. And I think especially like in the beginning of your hike, every nerve is on end, like, and you're very aware of your surroundings, the people around you, the noises around you, like what's going on. Everything's new.
Yep.
I know it took me several nights of sleeping before I realized that, like, when the wind hits my Tyvek sleep space just right, it sounds like somebody's going to murder me. And it takes an amount of time before you can convince yourself without, like, waking up with the fright, like, and being like, nope, that's just the piece of Tyvek you're sleeping on.
The right bird can sound like, if it's just hopping around the woods, the right bird or squirrel, you're just like, what the fuck is that?
Yeah, I'm gonna die.
And like, I've told the story about the ostrich, and and then I'm pretty sure this thing was either just a very large deer walking around in the Shenandoah, or it was a bear. Yeah.
Which is totally, I mean, that's as likely as anything else, especially in that park. Like, they're all over the place.
It was more than likely a deer just coming up, but it sounded heavier.
Right.
But then you're inside your tent, and you're like, well, what is it? And then you have that game of the same thing I had with the ostrich, which is, if I get out, is it going to view that as a threat? Mm-hmm. Or if I start moving around and using zippers, things they haven't heard, is it just going to fucking bum rush me?
Right.
Is it better for me to have my Spyderco Ladybug with a 2.5-inch blade out ready to...
My adorable knife.
Yeah, exactly. Is it like, which is, not going to do anything, but it's like, what do I do?
Right.
And I think it's just one of those in the situation. I just had to make the call. Yeah. And I didn't, I froze both times.
So I have to tell a cute story.
Please do.
I was lucky enough to find myself on a Himalayan trek in the mountains of India.
Ooh.
And
how long ago?
This was in 2006.
Okay. So
I was supposed to be on a 10-day trek. It was cut unfortunately short because of a medical emergency in my group that I was helping take care of. But the first night, and let me also, I'm fully going to say, I was not backpacking in the Himalayas. I was being Sherpa'd in the Himalayas. Mm-hmm. This was the cushest hiking trip of my life. I had a day pack with more stuff than I should have been carrying, but there were pack horses that had a lot of our gear, and literally the Sherpas and their people, they would go ahead of us, set up our camp, and as far as set up our camp, they would set up the cook tent, and so they cooked all of our meals for us, which was unbelievable.
Yeah.
They set up a tent for us all to eat in, and when we got to camp, we were responsible for setting up our personal tents, but there weren't enough tents for every person, so my little shitty North Face tadpole, which is a 1.5 man tent, it was me and one other girl.
Oh, wow.
And she had never been camping in her life, and she cried herself to sleep every night because she hated it. She was she did not realize what she had signed up for, and she was miserable. And so the first night, and I was just excited, and so I crawl into my bed, and my tent mate is sobbing, and obviously we're spooning because there's nothing else you can do in this tiny 2-man tent. She is sobbing.
And is it really cold?
It was pretty cold.
Yeah.
I mean, it was summertime, but it was certainly cold enough to be really happy in my 20-degree bag. So I would say it was not quite freezing, but it was that steady and super moist cold. So it was just a penetrating kind of cold. But I woke up in the morning to what looked like, and I imagine you're in a tent, and obviously the rain flies on your tent. So you're sort of the rain fly of your tent sort of seems to glow as the sun is getting higher and the sky is getting brighter. It never really got sunny because it was monsoon season, but it was almost like somebody had the world on a dimmer switch, and that would get less dim and more dim.
Yeah.
So as it was getting less dim, I had almost no track of what time it was anyhow. And so I'm looking at the tent fly and kind of just sitting there going I am backpacking in the Himalayas.
Yeah.
This is awesome. And as I'm looking up at the tent fly, it looked almost like the palm of somebody's hand pressed my tent fly and then went away. Mm-hmm. So there's just this little black, I would say
shadow.
It was a little shadow that was probably about the size of an index card, pressed on my tent, and then the shadow goes away. And then on the other side of my tent, the same thing. And then more and more. And it's almost happening very sparse raindrops, but it's these index size, almost like a hand print. And I'm what is that? I have no idea what that is. What could that possibly be? And so I quietly unzip my tent, and I unzip the rain fly, and I look out, and all the pack ponies were licking the dew off my tent. And it was the cutest thing. Once I realized what they were doing, and of course I scared the shit out of them when I stuck my head out, and they were oh, we're sorry, bye, and they all ran away. But I got back into my tent, and as I'm enjoying myself, and then I hear then the sobbing of my tent mate started up again, and then the mind-blowing experience of I realized just how cush this was going to be as I hear a very happy Indian man say, tea, morning tea, and he brought me a cup of tea in a teacup and saucer to my tent, and I sat up in my sleeping bag and drank chai from a teacup, and I was like,
a saucer.
My mind has been blown.
Wow.
Thank you very much. So it was amazing. But anyhow, that was
glamping in the Himalayas.
Yeah, no shit. But that was one of those experiences where you're like sitting in your tent going, what the shit's happening?
Yeah.
I have no idea what's going on. And then I'm like, oh, it's these adorable pack ponies are licking the dew off my tent. That's adorable.
Did you ever see any of the Northern Lights in Maine?
No.
We could one night when we were at Pierce Pond Shelter.
Oh, yeah.
It was the first place I heard loons.
Yeah.
And and then it got dark and we were like sitting there and we could see like some lights over in this one area and we were like, what town is over there that we can see the lights from it? And we got the map out and we're looking at it. We're like,
nothing.
There's fucking nothing
There's
over
nothing there.
And then it was just like this, like, we didn't see like, it wasn't like big greens. Like it was just more just like off in the distance behind this one mountain. And we could see it kind of rise and fall. But that was about it. It was just like, what the fuck is that? And then we're just like, are we seeing Aurora Borealis?
Oh, there's no way to not sound like a science nerd when you say that. Aurora
Push up your glasses. Aurora Borealis.
It just sounds like you should be on the edge of your seat with your hand in the air going, me, 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 Aurora Borealis, Aurora Borealis. I can't even say it.
Aurora Borealis sounds like it could be a stripper name, too.
Yeah, it'd be a good one.
Yeah. Would it be a male or female?
Totally, it would be a female dressed as a librarian.
Maybe an astronomer. She's wearing she's wearing like a lab coat.
Could stroke her telescope.
Yep, that's what I was thinking.
Yep, I'm an expert at this.
Huh?
I'm an expert at this. Quick, what's your stripper name?
Aurora Borealis. So
Black Lavender.
Black Lavender.
I can't imagine how ridiculous I would look as a blonde.
I know I'd look great. Like Guy Fieri frosted tips.
Guys with blonde hair freak me out unless it's like truly naturally blonde, like Blondie, the kid, this kid that I met in the Maine wilderness, expecting, like, when people started talking about Blondie, I was expecting a girl.
Yeah.
And it was one of those pleasant surprises that I meet this, like, adorable boy who's the only one that's, like, clean shaven of everybody. And he's got this, like, imagine, like, it's almost like a Jufro or, like, a clown wig, but blonde, like, white blonde.
Right.
And it was so cute. And he was sunburned all over because he was really pale.
Yeah.
And he was having like irritation because the sunburn that he had gotten a couple days earlier was peeling, and the
like where his pack straps are.
Right, and the peeling was bugging him. So I sat down like a little monkey with him in front of me, and I peeled. And it wasn't that bad. I mean, like, it really... I'm not one of those, like, zit people or, like, blister people that I'm like, ooh, this is fun. But it was literally, like, it was uncomfortable for him, and it was helping. So I was, like, peeling the dead layers of skin off of him. And he was just like, this is the most female attention I've gotten pretty much in the last 6 months. So
it seems like it was a really disgusting scene from Ghost.
No, but the funniest thing about it was like...
Sorry, it's making me laugh. Oh, my love, my darling, I take off your blisters.
One time, I can't remember what we were doing. Ben was like washing dishes, or maybe it was like I want to say he was trying to like get a label off of a bottle or something like that. And I was trying to show him like the best way to get this label off his So I got behind him and like put my arms around him when I was doing it just to be like cute and ridiculous. So I'm trying to get this bottle off, and he's like, I feel like this is, because obviously he's like a dude that's got this woman's arms wrapped around him, like
he's Demi Moore all of a sudden.
Right, and he was just like, I feel like this is weird. Isn't this from a movie? I was like, yeah, it's just like wearing Ghost, and you're Demi Moore, and I'm Patrick Swayze. So we thought that was funny, and I put it up on Facebook, and it was just like, a quotation of like, this is just like Ghost, and you're Patrick Swayze, and I'm Demi Moore, or vice versa. And a loosely related relative commented on it, "That's so hot." And I was like, she did not read through it. She totally thought it was the other way, and that's why I hate you. You should go away forever, not be, whatever. She's related by marriage, so it's fine. Yeah.
Maybe we should wrap this up because we gotta go get our interview on.
I gotta put real pants on.
Yes, you do.
Take off my going out sweats and put on some real pants.
Yeah, you definitely have the look of you're the Carrie mom who's been working out all day, never got out of the yoga pants.
Hey man,
time to go pick up the kids now.
Hey man,
take them to I don't know, Gymboree, or
sign language class.
Yes, take them to sign language class.
Take them there to their bilingual sign language class,
followed by soccer.
Yes.
Football.
Yes.
But so you can find us on Facebook. Just look for Pox and Puss. Look for @Pox and Puss on Twitter, @Pox Holiday on Twitter, @ATPuss and Boots on Twitter. And I believe you have an announcement to make about one of our things. Pinterest.
Oh, I haven't done anything.
Oh, you haven't?
No.
Oh, I haven't.
But I will this week because I'm home in a brace.
I still get an email saying that we're being followed. Like somebody, Bobby.
We're being followed. Oh, God. Yeah, so for real, probably by the time you're listening to this, you should really check us out on Pinterest because I have the next week of mandatory off. So in between, working out with all the other Carrie moms and
going to Gymboree
and checking out wedding reception venues.
Ooh.
God, I'm not cut out for this whole bride shit. No. I tried on wedding dresses the other day. That was horrible.
Yeah.
It was like I basically had to tell the woman that helps you get into the dress. I was like, look, if there's not enough room in this dressing room for you, me, and the dress, it's not the dress for me. Like, please understand. And she kept trying to talk like designers with me, and she was like, this was Jackie O's designer. I'm like, look, I like Jackie O as much as the next woman, but you are not hearing me. Like, I am not this kind of girl. And the really hilarious thing was the girl on the other side of the room from me was like total princess, and she would like put on this gigantic ball gown and was like, I just don't think it has enough sizzle. It doesn't have enough pizzazz. It doesn't have enough anything. And I'm like, no, really? Like, this is too much. This is really too much.
Do you have a white burlap sack?
Can we think like hippie gown and just make that wedding-y? That would be great.
I need anything that goes with gym socks.
Yeah. Can I wear yoga pants?
Can I just wear gray yoga pants?
Can we make white keens for this?
You should just have your reception at Gymboree.
Oh, that would be great.
Yeah.
They already know me.
Trolling for tail at Gymboree.
Gross. Don't make it weird.
Well, Journey, what do you think?
He doesn't think much.
He's like, no, I'm just going to fall asleep here.
Yeah.
All right. So find us on the Facebook, the Twitter, the Pinterest.
Email. We didn't say email.
Email poxandpuss@gmail.com.
pussandboots@gmail.com.
And you can also just go to poxandpuss.com, and there's a place in there to contact us, and then we'll be able to get it that way. And is there anything else?
And for real, probably this week I will also have the Etsy site set up, which I'm sure that we will advertise on our different venues, but that will make it much easier for all of the questions that we've gotten about t-shirts.
Yeah, and all of you that have emailed, I'm sorry I haven't gotten back. We were just kind of in the midst of trying to get that.
We have been for real, like Calamity Joe and Calamity Jane lately.
God,
it's insane. I feel like maybe this means that like 2014 will definitely be like relaxed and easy. I really hope so.
It would be nice.
Yeah.
It would be nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
It would be nice.
Yeah. There's never a dull moment, that's for sure.
No, not at all. But yeah, and you can find the Two Quarts podcast as well on iTunes.
Yeah.
And maybe it'll already be out by the time this comes out. I don't know when they put them out.
Yeah.
But yeah, just because it's North Carolina based podcast doesn't mean check it out. But Two Quarts, like a quart of beer apparently. They're bringing a growler of beer from some thing. I don't know.
have to pee so bad the whole time.
And I've got to, and I drive home after this.
Oh, you're gonna make so many stops.
Yeah,
Good thing there's a lot of sheets.
I literally, God, the Sheets in Statesville is the only place to stop.
God, I love Sheets.
Once you get past Statesville,
Sheets and Wawa. I got to go to a
get your ass
Wawa
beat
the
or
other
raped.
day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In Washington.
We went to a
DC?
wedding in Virginia, and we got to go to a Wawa, and it was mind blowing.
When you go to a Wawa, don't you just feel a little weird, like
baby talk?
Yeah, that and
Like you don't want to for real actually say Wawa.
That and Helen Keller. I'm really proud of myself. I didn't say Anne Frank because I usually mix those two up.
Did you see? That's on Snooki and JWoww. She
no, I could tell you right now, I did not see Snooki and JWoww.
It's on the previews, but yeah,
they get them mixed up.
No, JWoww gets them mixed up, and she's talking about
what it is about them. But I've heard many people mix those two up.
She's talking about how teaching things is difficult, and I think she's trying to train one of her dogs to do something, and she's like, no, it takes practice and time. It's just like Anne Frank, and she goes on and on, and finally, like one of the producers and editors like calls her out on it while she's on camera, and she's like, I'm looking it up, and grabs her phone and starts looking at it. And she's like, Anne Frank, Jewish girl. Oh shit! I meant Helen Keller. And
I was at dinner with a bunch of 60-year-old people last night. It was me and like
good times.
Mom's friends. I actually had a good time.
Oh, good.
But they were just sitting there, and like we went to this really fancy restaurant, and there were just like words on there that none of us knew, like écromé of this and this.
Horsey doovers.
And they're all sitting around like, and these are smart people, but it's like words where like, what the fuck does that mean? Yeah. I'm like, I think it just means pork chop, but it has some other word to it. It means
goo.
And so we, they're like, what are we need to ask the wait. And I just like pull up my phone and I'm like, yeah, it means it's a special cut of meat and mainly coming from the rib of the carcass. Oh. I'm like, I don't think that the waitress would have said carcass.
Yeah, carcass is not very
I literally looked up 3 words at dinner last night that we couldn't figure out what the hell it was. And they're all like, oh. And I'm like, just think about it, motherfuckers. Mm-hmm. All right.
We'll see you on 2 Quarts.
Bye-bye. I just put my dick in the fleece thing.
I wish I had a witty comeback, but I don't.
It's like, comeback. But it's like,